That is not a modulation. We didn't leave the key, and yet the entire emotional weight just shifted. That sound right there is the sixth chord doing what it does best. That emotional color shift is the most obvious thing that six does, but it's only the surface. Up until this point in the series, we've mostly been looking at chords that come with very specific voice leading expectations. With the supertonic, for example, every inversion of 2 and 2/7 has a predictable job to move towards the dominant. The sixth chord, the submediant, is different. Unlike most chords, it almost only appears in root position, but that single position can support a huge range of progressions and voice leading possibilities because six's role in a phrase is unusually fluid. We've already seen one version of that flexibility. Way back in episode 18, we talked about deceptive cadences, where six can stand in for one at the moment we expect resolution. Today, we're going to zoom out and look at what else six can do, but this time not by memorizing a list of favored chord connections, but by understanding the harmonic space it lives in. Let's start with the simplest possible frame. This isn't really a list of progressions. It's more like a field. When chords move down by thirds, we get a gradual shift in function. 1 moves to 6, 6 moves to 4, 4 moves to 2, and so on. 1 is firmly tonic. 4 and 2 are clearly predominant chords, and 6 sits right in between them. If everything stays in root position and the voices move by the shortest possible distances, this field behaves very predictably, with each voice moving as little as possible by default. But that's only the starting point. The moment you add passing motion or invert a chord to smooth the bass, the number of good solutions grows very quickly. That's not a bug, it's a feature. First, let's just isolate 1 to 6. This is straightforward. The bass leaps down from 1 to 6, one voice steps up from 5 to 6, and the other two voices stay on the same notes, scale degrees 1 and 3. That's it. This is 6 in its most neutral form, an extension of the tonic, not a departure from it. And listen to what it does to the sound. In major keys, 6 is minor. In minor keys, 6 is major. So moving from 1 to 6 lets us flip the emotional color from major to minor or minor to major without really going anywhere harmonically. It's an extremely efficient move, a big shift in character for very little motion. Now watch what happens when we keep going. When we move on from 6 to 4, the same basic mechanism repeats. The bass leaps down a third again, one voice steps up, and the other two voices stay still. Once again, we pan from minor to major, or vice versa, while the harmony stays tightly connected. At this point, though, something changes. We've moved out of tonic space and into predominant space. And that's the key idea. The important thing here isn't how the voices move, it's how little they need to. A lot of textbooks basically say that 1 moves to 6 and 6 moves to 4 or 2, and then stop there, as if that's the whole story. But we haven't even gotten to the interesting part yet. As soon as we start filling in that motion with passing tones, or surrounding 6 with inverted chords, the voice leading possibilities explode. Let's look at the most obvious case. Instead of moving directly from 1 to 6, we can fill in that bass leap of a third with a passing tone, moving 1, 7, 6, and harmonize scale degree 7 with a passing 5, 6 chord. The sixth chord isn't necessarily the goal here. It's just one possibility when the bass starts stepping down the scale. But notice what's not happening here. This 5-6 isn't functioning as a dominant in the usual sense. The leading tone in the bass isn't pulling upward, it's stepping down. This is just passing motion within tonic space. And that passing motion opens up a huge inventory of melodic options in the upper voices. Over this exact same bass line, a composer might move one voice in parallel thirds with the bass, 3-2-1, use neighbor motion, 1-2-1 or 3-2-3, or arpeggiate the tonic, 3-5-1 or 1-5-3. None of these are the solution. They're all solutions because the harmony underneath is stable but not rigid. So if we're writing this progression in 4 parts, we have options. We could keep things very simple, or we could lean into the more expressive options. The 6th chord can show up when voices move very little or when they move with much more melodic intent. And that's why when progressions that use 6 show up, they almost never look the same way twice. And that flexibility doesn't stop when we arrive at 6. The same is true when we move on from it. Usually composers follow 6 with 4 or 4-6, with almost any inversion of 2 or 2-7, or sometimes even the Neapolitan, multiplying the voice leading possibilities even further. Unlike earlier episodes where I could show you a small number of ideal solutions for very specific progressions, the 6th chord actively resists that kind of cataloging. It appears in too many contexts with too many valid realizations. So I'm going to show you just a few of the many possibilities. But when you're doing your own part writing or writing your own progressions, just know that you have options. The 6th chord gives you a lot of freedom. Now, as a tonic adjacent chord, 6 can stand in for 1 in places like cadences, because the 2 chords share 2 notes in common, and importantly, one of those notes is scale degree 1. Deceptive motion works because we literally just have to change one note, the bass. These progressions are identical except for the final bass note. But most of the time, 6 isn't replacing the tonic, it's redirecting its energy. The music doesn't stop at a deceptive cadence. In fact, it catapults it forward. Once 6 comes on the scene, it usually hands off to some inversion of 4 or 2. We saw that in the last episode where Bach moved straight from 6 to 2-7 to 5-7 to 1 in his chorale number 179. Those root position leaps around the circle of fifths provide a structural scaffold into the cadence. And from 6 to 2-7, the upper voices move smoothly, 2 common tones and 1 step up. But the bass doesn't always exit 6 by leap. Sometimes composers do the opposite. In Bach's chorale number 360, we arrive on 6 through a deceptive cadence. Nothing new here, but watch what happens next. The bass stays on scale degree 6, while the harmony above it cycles through 4-6, then 2-4-3, before moving into a cadential 6-4 and the dominant. We may have initially cadenced on 6, but it's not the destination, it's a platform. By holding scale degree 6 in the bass, Bach can explore multiple predominant harmonies before moving on. Let's zoom in on how this works. At the deceptive cadence, the 6th chord has a doubled third, scale degree 1, just as we expect. If we move only the tenor from 3 up to 4 and keep all the other voices exactly where they are, the 6th chord turns into 4-6. Then, if we move only the soprano from 1 up to 2, 4-6 becomes 2-4-3. All of this happens over the same bass note, scale degree 6. We move from root position 6 to first inversion 4 to second inversion 2-7. This is classic predominant cycling. By sitting on scale degree 6, the harmony can accumulate tension gradually, reshaping itself above a stable foundation before finally releasing into dominant space. This is 6 doing one of its most characteristic jobs, connecting tonic space to predominant space smoothly. In both of these Bach examples, the upper voices were completely stepwise, first over a leaping bass and then over a stationary bass. Now, let's watch Mozart do the opposite. Instead of containing the energy of the 6th chord, Mozart uses it to explode outward from the top. Harmonically, this is our same simple 1, 5, 6, 6 progression from earlier. But listen to what the upper voices are doing. The first violin arpeggiates the tonic chord upward, 3, 5, 1. The viola mirrors that in reverse, 1, 5, 3. And the second violin moves in parallel thirds, 3, 2, 1, with the cello's 1, 7, 6. So at the same time, we have two voices moving together in parallel thirds, two voices engaged in dramatic voice exchange, arpeggiating the tonic in opposite directions, and the outer voices moving in contrary motion, opening up the texture. Nothing here is parsimonious. The voices are not moving as little as possible, and yet it works effortlessly. Mozart is taking full advantage of the freedom the 6th chord affords. This works because the harmonic frame is stable, even as the surface becomes expressive and expansive. And this is much more exciting than just using one note to move from 1 to 6. So in Bach, we saw the 6th chord used to contain energy, preparing for that eventual move towards the dominant. In Mozart, we saw the opposite, the same harmonic frame used to release energy outward, dramatizing the motion, but still staying grounded in tonic space. With most chords, theory gives us very specific voice leading recipes. The 6th chord works differently. Instead of a single fingerprint, it gives us a field, a space between tonic and predominant harmony where many solutions are possible. What stays predictable isn't the surface motion, but the bass behavior, which tells us which role 6 is playing at any given moment. That's why 6 can quietly prolong the tonic, redirect energy after a deceptive cadence, set up predominant harmony, and support expressive melodies. In the next episodes, we'll look at moments where this flexibility collapses, when 6 interacts directly with the dominant, or when it does something truly magical. But all of that grows out of the behavior that you heard today. So I'll see you next time on Dr. Fromm's Music Lab.